Namaste, and welcome to all of you for our continuing study of the life divine with our beloved Ranga. We are now in the chapter The Knowledge and the Ignorance, on page 503, the very last paragraph. But there is one point.
I will read out the summary of what he has said previously so that we have a sense of continuity. So, Srimad has told us that when you experience the higher planes of consciousness, the difference between the world state and the state of knowledge is absolutely the opposite of each other. So a doubt arises in the mind that perhaps it is impossible to have a divine life here. If you want the divine consciousness, your soul has to leave your body-mind life and go there, to the upper level.
But still he does tell us that there has been this aspiration through the centuries.
And then he slowly suggests that there are connections, that there is a gradation, and it is not that impossible. He goes on suggesting. And then he says now that if this view, my view, what I am saying now, that there is a connection and there is a possibility of a divine life on earth, then what he is going to say, if this view is valid, then there is hope here of any change. We can at least hope. So what are we to do to make that possible? The materialist, he says there are so many people and so many opinions. So he is giving one by one the opinions.
And very thorough.
Yeah. The materialist, two solutions: enjoy life to the full or do philanthropic work. That's the only object you can have. The materialist, that's the existentialism theory also, that you can do nothing about it. The limitations are there, you have to make do with whatever you can.
And it's a positive statement, and yet so limited.
Yes. And on the other hand, he says, but if you are not a purely materialist and you have some aspiration for making society better or making the life of poor people better, then you have the choice of a philanthropic work, which is not selfish. You are doing it for others. So that's the best you can do. That's a materialistic two solutions. The religionist seeks his solution in a perfect heaven, not here in the world. The religionist says God is only there, not here. The philosophic mystic seeks his solution in a nirvana or extinction. God is there nowhere. So neither here nor there. But if you want peace and no suffering, go to nirvana. Nirvana is nothing but the Brahmic consciousness, interpreted as nirvana. Interpreted as nirvana. Nirvana means a blank. No God. So now Srimad goes on to, but we have seen by our investigations that the lower and the higher are not opposites. They are very much connected, and a perfect divine life upon earth is not an irrational hope. We can do it. This is what he has said in the previous para. Now we come to our para today. But there is one point in the reasoning which till now we have left somewhat obscure, and it is precisely in this matter of the coexistence of the knowledge and the ignorance. Both are there together. That's the problem. Pure knowledge is not available here. So what to do? Admittedly, we start here from conditions which are the opposite of the ideal divine truth, and all the circumstances of that opposition are founded upon the being's ignorance of himself and of the self of all, outcome of an original cosmic ignorance whose result is self-limitation and the founding of life on division in being, division in consciousness, division in will and force, division in delight, division and limitation in knowledge, power, love, with as consequence the positive opposite phenomenon of egoism, obscuration, incapacity, misuse of knowledge and will, disharmony, weakness and suffering. This is typically Sri Aurobindo style. He doesn't stop at saying suffering, ignorance. He'll give a whole list of consequences.
Very complete.
So, this is one of his styles, his style of writing. Note the words. First of all, there is division. Division in being, division in existence. One stone is different from another. You are different from me. There is division, division in being. Then, division in consciousness. You have one consciousness, my consciousness has nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with the animal, nothing to do with the sage. So, division in consciousness. Limitation in knowledge and power. Your knowledge will be 10 times more. The power of a
division in will and force.
Division in will and force.
Division in will and force, yes. Someone will have much more will than I have. Different, it's not the same. Universal will is there, but the way individuals receive is different. I may receive the will more easily, I may receive the force more easily, somebody else will receive less. So division is there.
Division in delight.
Delight.
And that's an important one.
Very important, to such an extent that what I enjoy, somebody else may hate. Absolutely opposite. So division in love with as consequence the positive opposite phenomenon of egoism, obscuration, incapacity, misuse of knowledge and will, disharmony, weakness and suffering. Now note this word, misuse of knowledge.
Yes.
The animal uses knowledge to whatever extent it can. But very rare, I don't think, there is misuse of knowledge in the animal. But misuse of knowledge comes when mind comes into the picture. You use the mind for all sorts of things.
I don't think it's there in the animal. I don't feel that.
Sometimes there is a perversion, but in man, perversion is an element. Definitely. He misuses his knowledge. Okay? Disharmony, weakness, suffering. We have found that this ignorance, although shared by matter and life, has its roots in the nature of mind, whose very office is to measure off, limit, particularize, and therefore thereby divide. So, which is that which makes the division? The principle of mind. The principle of mind divides. It is a mind that makes one into the many. Above the mind level, oneness. As soon as the mind comes in, it starts a division. And we know that because mind is an analytical instrument. It likes to segregate, likes to separate, see each piece separately. So this is the nature of mind. It's got its advantages, but it's also got its disadvantages. You can't have spiritual knowledge with the mind. Impossible. To get spiritual knowledge of oneness, you have to go above the mind. In other words, the mind has to become absolutely silent. Okay? We have found that this ignorance, although shared by matter and life, has its roots in the nature of mind, whose very office is to measure off, limit, particularize, and thereby divide. Okay? But mind also is a universal principle, is one, is Brahman, and therefore it has a tendency to a unifying and universalizing knowledge as well as to that which marks off and particularizes. So, interesting. All these things that he has spoken of, Sat, Chit, Shakti, Ananda, each one is infinite at the highest level, finite at the lowest level. This gradation is there. So if you are at the lower level, mind is producing ignorance and division. But if you can raise your consciousness somehow to the higher levels, ignorance will disappear and knowledge will come. Knowledge of what? Knowledge of oneness, knowledge of harmony, knowledge of the cosmic consciousness, knowledge that yourself is the self of all. This is the knowledge that you will get. Okay, so the particularizing faculty of mind only becomes ignorance when it separates itself from the higher principles of which it is a power and acts not only with its characteristic tendency but also with a tendency to exclude the rest of knowledge, to particularize first and foremost and always, and to leave unity as a vague concept to be approached only afterwards when particularization is complete and through a sum of particulars. This exclusiveness is the very soul of ignorance. Now what he's saying is very interesting. We'll have a look at what he's saying. The particularizing faculty of mind only becomes ignorance when it separates. So now consider that your mind is at the highest level. Compare it to a hill. You are on top of the hill and you can see 20 miles all around. Wherever you look, you see. So your knowledge, your view, your vision is almost perfect for 20 miles at least. If you go even higher up, even more. If you go into space, you will see the whole earth, which you don't see here. So you see much more of knowledge at the higher level. As you keep coming down, your view of the whole reduces. And by the time you come down here to the lowest level, all you see is only your house or your street. Ignorance. Okay? So that's what he's saying. So ignorance and knowledge are not opposites. They are graded elements of the same thing. Knowledge at the highest level, ignorance at the lowest level. So there is a connection between the two. The idea that they are unconnected is wrong, according to Sri. Okay? We go to the next.
Yes.
We must then seize hold on the strange power of consciousness, which is the root of our ills, examine the principle of its operation, and detect not only its essential nature and origin, but its power and process of operation, and its last end and means of removal. How do we get rid of it? How is it that the ignorance exists? How has that any principle or power in the infinite self-awareness, how has any principle been able to put self-knowledge behind it and exclude all but its own characteristic limited action? Certain thinkers have declared that the problem is insoluble. It is an original mystery and is intrinsically incapable of explanation. Anirvachaniya is the same. It's beyond language. You can't explain here. But if you go beyond the mind, explanation is not necessary. Your view of it will make it very obvious to you. Okay, so incapable of explanation. Only the fact and the process can be stated. This is knowledge, this is ignorance, and Maya is separating them. What is Maya? Impossible to say. There is the Shankaran and Vedantic philosophy also. The process by which knowledge becomes ignorance cannot be expressed in words. It has to be experienced beyond the mind. Okay, so only the fact and the process can be stated. Or else, the question of the nature of the supreme original existence or non-existence is put aside as either unanswerable or unnecessary to answer. Why unnecessary? I will tell you. One can say that Maya is the power of the divine to make the one into the many. In other words, Maya is the particularizing action or the dividing action. Maya. Note interestingly the word Maya, the root is Ma. Ma means to measure. As soon as you measure, you are limiting. And if you are limiting, you are ending up with ignorance. It's a very clear logical connection. Okay, so only the fact can bring a child. Or non-existence is put aside as either unanswerable or unnecessary to answer. Now, we'll dwell a little on this because Swami is saying supreme original existence or non-existence. So what does it mean? Supreme existence can be seen also as non-existence. Now, this nature of existence that he is talking about, the self, there are several things that you have to note. First of all, it's a consciousness beyond the mind. In the mind, you can never see the self. So when you go beyond the mind, and what does beyond the mind mean? You have silence in your mind, no thoughts. So when there are no thoughts, the substance of mind, which is moving all the time, and that is thought, that no more, there is no more thinking. So when the movement stops, the self appears. And the self is non-movement. The substance which is moving has now become static. This is what is what he's using the word fundamental, supreme original existence. When he uses the word existence, you must understand it as substance which is absolutely still. It's like the water behind the dam. When it's absolutely static, pure, infinite, it is the self-existence. But there is no dam, there is no limit, there is only water. Transparent, still, pure. Now if somebody comes along with you and you ask him, what are you seeing? If he says, I am seeing water which is still, it's a substance which is still, he is a Vedantic. But you bring a Buddhist and you say, I see nothing. Yeah. It's the same thing. There is nothing, no feature. How can I see anything? No color, no shape, no. That's why he is saying supreme original existence or non-existence. Non-existence is the Buddhistic and the supreme original existence is Vedantic. Okay? So, or they are saying is either unanswerable or not necessary to answer. Why is that? One can say that Maya, with its fundamental principle of ignorance or illusion, simply is. And this power of Brahman has a double force of knowledge and ignorance inherently potential in it. All we have to do is to recognize the fact and find a means of escape out of the ignorance. So, this power of Brahman, which is silent, has a capacity to be static. The water behind the dam can be static. Then you have knowledge. But the water can decide to come down into a river flow with movement. That becomes the world. This is Ramakrishna made exactly the same thing. Water in movement is the world. Water in static condition is the supreme.
Does Sri Aurobindo use knowledge synonymously with wisdom?
Wisdom is another word.
Just another word, yeah. Okay.
We have defined what is knowledge last time.
Yes.
Knowledge is that which, if you have the knowledge, you see the oneness of things. You see the real. You don't take the separate things that you see in the physical world as real and lasting. You see the reality. Okay? So he's saying, why do you want an explanation? This is the way it is built. Okay? You see something and you ask, why is it like that? You don't have to ask why it is like that. It is like that. Okay? That's what Swami is saying. Inherently potential in it. All we have to do is to recognize the fact and find a means of escape out of the ignorance. So, there is ignorance and there is knowledge, according to some. Through the knowledge, but into what is beyond knowledge and ignorance by renunciation of life, by recognition of the universal impermanency in things and the vanity of cosmic existence. So you can escape by several means. Escape the ignorance and go to the self. He has given you 3-4 means. 1, by renunciation of life, the ascetic tendency. I don't want to have anything to do with this. How do you do that? Get the soul to come out of the prison of body, mind, life and go up. It's free. You get knowledge. Or by recognition of the universal impermanency of things. Distinguish between the reality and the unreality. All the limited things that you see are unreal. So go on telling yourself, this world is unreal, this world is unreal. I am not the body, I am not the vital, I am not the life, I am not the mind. What am I then? I am pure consciousness. We come back to that famous Shankaracharya's Nirvana Ashtakam. Mano buddhi ahankara chittani naham. I am not all these things. Then what am I? Sadananda rupa shivoham shivoham. I am the eternally Ananda, Sat Chit Ananda. That's what I am. That's the way that he is pointing out here. Universal impermanency of things and the vanity of cosmic existence. One way is to reject the world and go up. Sri Aurobindo way is not rejection. Sri Aurobindo way is acceptance, but it's a different way. So that completes the. But there is a footnote which we didn't read. Okay?
Yes.
We go to the footnote now.
Okay.
Page 504. He says, certain thinkers have declared that the problem is insoluble. This is what Buddha says. What is the way to get rid of it? So, why is it there if you ask? Buddha will answer, don't worry, when your house is on fire, don't start asking from where did the fire come, why did it come, don't think that. Take a bucket of water and start putting the fire out. Be practical. That is the Buddhistic philosophy. Don't go into philosophy, it will confuse you. Just do the practical thing, escape from your body, mind, life. How to do that? The eightfold path. Right thinking, right action, right living, right this, right that, right thought, right emotion. Then you can do that. Buddha refused to consider the metaphysical problem, the process by which our unreal individuality is constructed, and a world of suffering maintained in existence, and the method of escape from it is all that is of importance. Concentrate on escaping. Why do you worry about the fire? Okay, the fire is the suffering in the world. Karma is a fact. Now that's interesting. Karma is a fact. Buddhism accepts karma. In other words, the action that you do today bind you to tomorrow's effects. Every action that you do has a result.
So does Buddhism then consider that we've had many lives?
Yes.
Okay.
They accept that. Rebirth they accept.
They accept that.
And the time must come when you get the knowledge of how to escape, get out. Okay? Karma is a fact. The construction of objects of an individuality, not truly existence, is a cause of suffering. Okay? So, when you have an individuality, you are limiting yourself. So that's the cause of suffering. Individuality. Of an individuality not truly existent in the cause of suffering. To get rid of karma, individuality and suffering must be our one objective. By that elimination, we shall pass into whatever may be free from these things, permanent, real. The way of liberation alone matters. So this is Buddha's suggestion. Now, he has said that there is a possibility of going on. How? But our mind cannot remain satisfied. Satisfied with what? Satisfied by the solution. He said, don't worry about the cause, how it came and all, but just get out. And I am telling you how to get out. Right thinking, right emotions, right actions, etc., etc. But our mind cannot remain satisfied. Will man be satisfied by this? Shivananda says no. Because the mind has got seeking for knowledge, seeking for reasons. So mind cannot be satisfied with the Buddhistic explanation. The mind of Buddhism itself did not remain satisfied with this evasion of the very root of the whole matter. How did knowledge become ignorance? That's what we have to find. That's the root of the matter. In the first place, these philosophies, while thus putting aside the root question, do actually make far-reaching assertions that assume not only a certain operation and symptoms, but a certain fundamental nature of the ignorance from which their prescription of remedies proceeds. And it is obvious that without such a radical diagnosis, no prescription of remedies can be anything but an empiric dealing. Now, that's interesting. So, Enda is saying, knowledge is essential for control and power. If I don't know the cause of diabetes, I'll never be able to cure it. But if I have the knowledge of the process, how is diabetes coming? Is a function of the whatever organ it is, spleen or what, I've forgotten now. What is it called? Pancreas. Okay. So, if I know that, then I may be able to interfere in the process and I can get the cure. So, knowledge is power. So, the mind needs to know and have knowledge of the process. That's what he's saying. Okay. Do actually make far-reaching assertions that assume not only a certain operation and symptoms, but a certain fundamental nature of the ignorance from which their prescription of remedies proceeds. And it is obvious that without such a radical diagnosis, no prescription of remedies can be anything but an empiric dealing, empiric experiment based on experiment and the senses, the knowledge that the senses give you. But if we are to evade the root question, we have no means of judging whether the assertions advanced are correct or the remedies prescribed the right ones, or whether they are not others which, without being so violent, destructively radical, or of the nature of a surgical mutilation or extinction of the patient, may yet bring a more integral and natural cure. Now this is very interesting.
Very powerful.
Yeah. So he's saying, Buddhism is saying, cut off body-mind life. Moral surgery. Cut off body-mind life, you are in knowledge. Now Srenda is saying, I would like the patient to live. And even the body-mind life, I want it to live. I don't want the patient to die. Patient dead, operation successful. I don't want that. He says, I want the patient to live also and be cured. Are there other methods by which we can do? That's what he's asking. Okay, so whether there are not others which, without being so violent, destructively radical, or of the nature of a surgical mutilation or extinction of the patient, may yet bring a more integral and natural cure. So why necessarily as mutilation, surgical mutilation? Let the body-mind life remain and still get the solution. That is Srivanda's method. Okay? So, secondly, it is always the business of man, the thinker, to know. You can't say that the mind has no right to know. The mind has the right to know. So it has to find the process of how knowledge becomes ignorance. Okay? Secondly, it's always the basis of man, the thinker, to know. He may not be able by mental means to know the essentiality of the ignorance or of anything in the universe in the sense of defining it, because the mind can only know things in that sense by their signs, characters, forms, properties, functionings, relations to other things, not in their occult self being and essence. We may not know. The essence we may not know in the mind. But we can pursue further and further, clarify more and more accurately our observation of the phenomenal character and operation of the ignorance until we get the right revealing word, the right indicating sense of the thing, and so come to know it. Not by intellect, that's not possible, but by vision and experience of the truth, by realizing the truth in our own being. Either go into yourself and get the knowledge, or go beyond the mind and get the knowledge. The first one is going into yourself. The second one is going out of yourself, up above the mind. There are two ways. The whole process of man's highest intellectual knowledge is through this mental manipulation and discrimination to the point where the veil is broken and he can see. Not know by the mind, but see, vision. At the end, spiritual knowledge comes in to help us to become what we see, to enter into the light in which there is no ignorance. So Srivendra is saying, I will get the patient to be cured, and I will also see that his body-mind life is not eliminated. And there is a way to do it. So what's his way? He says, you have to go beyond the mind. Yes. Or go into yourself and experience yourself.
Maybe we can discuss this para.
Yeah. So I'll do one thing. The best discussion is the summary. So I read out the summary.
Okay.
So, Buddhism is saying, don't worry about the process, just do the thing and get out of the body-mind life. But the mind of man cannot be satisfied. His thirst for knowledge is infinite, as is proved by his efforts in science. I add a few things sometimes to make it clear. See, he is not satisfied by, diabetes is there, let it be. No, he wants to cure it. If there are floods, he wants to control the floods. If there is a storm, he wants to know where it is coming, why it is coming, so that he can avoid the damage. So mind is always seeking for knowledge, as is proved by his efforts in science. Secondly, the main feature of man is his mind, and so it is his business to know and understand. He has a right to know and understand. Okay, so besides, when the others are giving solutions to the problem of suffering, which are valid in themselves, we must find out if these solutions are legitimate, and that can be done only if we know the problem. A solution is possible only if we know what the problem really is. Again, we must see whether a better and more satisfying solution is possible. Are there better ways than Buddhism? Are there better ways than Mayavada? Are there better ways than asceticism? That's what he's asking. All different solutions valid in themselves to get rid of suffering. Of course, the true solution may be beyond the mind in spiritual experience. And the experience can be of sight, intuition, identification. Yet, we have to go through the mind. We have to go through the mind to get it. That's the solution he's offering. Don't use the wrong instruments of knowledge. Use the right instruments of knowledge, which are intuition, sight, vision, identification. Then you can get the truth.